Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Daily Marvel Snap video. So today we have the season refresh, and with the season refresh comes a brand new card. And this month's card is Modok. Modok is a 5/8 that discards your entire hand. And so I think he's going to be decent in an Apocalypse discard style deck. I think he'll be decent in Hella Shells. Only time will tell what version of those archetypes he's going to slot into best. But the one that I think has the most promise is the traditional lockjaw rotation discard deck, because he's going to add an extra element or an extra layer of security. So if you don't, for some reason, you don't get any of your discards early, Modok is always that fail-safe of just throw everything, discard everything, buff up your Morbius massively, give you some free rotation tools with your swarms, give you a pretty decently sized Apocalypse, all on that one turn. And it is incredibly satisfying to play. So the only slot in this deck that I'm not incredibly sold on is the Hella. So Hella is there as a like fail-safe, fail-safe, fail-safe. So it's every once in a while, if it potentially pulls into and you flip into Hella, or you discard your Modok, then maybe you end up pushing for Hella on the last turn instead of your Apocalypse, and you can get some value that way. But like I said, I'm not sold on it. I originally had Leech in the spot and it didn't feel great. I've tried Sarah in the spot and it just felt okay. Hella seems like it is probably the most flexible, but it does create some strife with your Lady Sif combo. So I don't know. I don't know what ultimately is the best slot. You could potentially do a Wolverine, but I think that's a little bit RNG based. It might jump into locations you don't want it to be in, into tough to reach locations. It might jump into your Lockjaw lane and start clogging up the board a little bit too much. You could run Hellcow, but I think Modok takes Hellcow's slot in this archetype because Modok can do what Hellcow can do, but better. And so he's a little bit more expensive, but he's a little bit more powerful, and he just has some incredible reach. And so overall, I've had an absolute blast with this. I'm excited to see what everyone else comes up with and where he goes. But as a reminder, this is a day one build, so there will still be some optimizations, but this should be a really good core, a really good base to build from. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so first up we have Eamon, and the first location is the big house. We do start out with both our Apocalypse and our Hella. The original version of this list that I ran didn't actually have Hella. It had Leech in it, just for those like mirror matches and for very particular matchups where it could potentially give us value, but overall it felt kind of lackluster. It didn't feel incredibly great, it just felt okay. So here, I normally wouldn't do the Swordmaster, but since we don't necessarily care if it discards our Hella, we're going to go ahead and send it. Because if it discards our Hella, that's fine, it gets it out of our hand. If it discarded something like our Dracula, we could aim more towards going with Hella resummon at the very end of the game, and we would have our value there as well. And so we're going to go with the Dracula into the far right lane. We can then start doing our Lockjaw rotation. And so if we end up rotating into Modok, then we just get some insane Morbius and Apocalypse value. And then we also have our Swarm. And so no matter what gets discarded from Blade here, it's okay. Hella is actually okay because we haven't discarded anything else. But I would rather discard our Swarm, our Apocalypse, and honestly, I would rather rotate into our Modok. And so looking at what we have, looking at the deck tracker, we have our Calling Wing left in our deck. We have our Lady Sif and our Modok. All pretty decent value. I mean, we have a Chavez, which if we rotate into Chavez, that's, oh wow, we discard our Apocalypse again. This Apocalypse has like a magnet. He wants to be discarded. And then into our Chavez. And so they extend the game with a magic. They did do debris. They are running a Wong, so they very likely have like a hazmat style build, which is a little bit scary. But overall, I think it's okay. We're going to go with the Calling Wing rotation here. We either rotate back into our Blade, back into our Lady Sif, or back into a Modok. And all of those are going to be phenomenal. And we're going to guarantee that we discard our Swarm. Now, if they get the high roll, a Gambit's not going to do it really for them. They might have a Mystique here. Wow, into the Lady Sif. This is a massive Apocalypse. They hit us with the Green Goblin, so I'm expecting... Oh, so the Gambit does come down. It's interesting that they didn't play that right before the Green Goblin, because had that destroyed the Green Goblin, I am sure that they would have been so very sad. We get the Calling Wing back in our hand. Modok is still out there. Modok can still give us some insane value. What we're going to do here is we're going to rotate our Swarm. We're going to drop our Calling Wing, which will be guaranteed to hit either our Hella or our Apocalypse. Honestly, we kind of want it to discard our Hela. We don't want Dracula to pull into it. We want Dracula to pull into our massive Apocalypse. Now, if they have an Odin, they're going to destroy 4 more cards here. And so we just have to dodge the bullet. We can't let our Dracula get discarded. There is the Modok. That rotation is beautiful. Apocalypse is now huge. Calling Wing discards it 1 additional time. Our Morbius is huge. Our right lane is going to be huge as well. We have to dodge the 4 destructions, and we have a really good chance here. So the Lockjaw gets hit, the Modok gets hit, which we're still winning in the middle location right now. We do still have a couple more triggers. Oh, Dracula needs to remain. He does. He dodges. He has bullets flying all around him, but he remains. We get the 32 power in that right lane, the 17 in the big house, and we still somehow win the middle location with just Lady Sif. We will take those sometimes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Soup Base, and in our starting hand, we have our Modok, we have Hela, we have Apocalypse. Not that we want to start with the highest 3 cards in our deck, but maybe we can make it happen. So we're going to play Blade. If it discards Modok, that's fine. If it discards Hela, then we know that we need to angle more towards the Apocalypse side. If it discarded our Modok, we would angle more towards using Hela at the end of the game. But there was really no downside or risk from running it. Wow, so we get both the Superflow and Elysium here. We get some insane value. We're going to be able to play our cards out very, very early. We're going to go ahead and play Dracula onto the board. And then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so they do have the Hood and the Viper, so they're running a junk style deck, which does hurt a little bit, but honestly, it's okay. The Lady Sif here will decide whether Hela is an option or if Apocalypse remains unfazed by having a second high cost card in his hand. We are going to play the Lady Sif. We don't necessarily care which one it discards. They are going to get the Typhoid Mary that turns into a symbiote on turn 5, which is massive. There's like just really nothing that we're going to be able to do there. We're gonna go ahead and play Modok. There's no reason to hold it. There's not really a reason to play our Calling Wing instead. Modok is going to allow us to trigger our Apocalypse, depending on what we draw into next turn. We could probably discard it 1 additional time and then play either our Chavez or our Apocalypse outright on the last turn. So they play a Wong. So are they running a Hazmat deck? Very, very scary, my friend. So they are going to win the right lane. We're just not really going to compete for that location unless we try to sneak it away with our Apocalypse on the last turn, which might be a decent play line. Let's go ahead and play Swordmaster into the middle location. The good thing about Dracula is that when he absorbs into something, as long he will reset. So he could be negative 100 and he is going to reset to 0 and then he'll have whatever power that card had. And so the negative downside doesn't hurt him nearly as much as some other cards out there. And so right now we have a decent lead in Superflow. We have a decent lead in Elysium. But if they go with a Hazmat and an Absorbing Man, yeah, that might hurt us. But I think what we're going to do instead is we're going to play our Apocalypse. We're going to push to win Clintar. I think we lose the Superflow. We're going to push to win Clintar. And then we're going to push to have our Dracula help us win Elysium. I don't know that it's enough, but we do get the retreat. Not a great play line. I'm guessing they didn't draw into maybe their Hazmat or any great plays to finish the game off, but we are okay. We will take that. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have JLH1129. The first location is Nidavellir. We do have our Morbius and our Calling Wing. We have Lockjaw as well. They snap on us on turn 1, which is kind of scary. I don't know what they're playing. I don't know what they're going with, but we have a decent starting hand, so we're at least going to see it play out for a little bit. Turn 2, I think always our priority is going to be playing Morbius outright. We can play Morbius into Nidavellir because he's going to get really large. And we don't want him to potentially move over into the right lane if it's a negative location. Wow. Oh, we get Sinister London, which is huge. We're going to double discard our Apocalypse here. We're going to drop 2 Draculas onto the board. On the last turn, maybe we play 2 Calling Wings. Maybe we do 2 Lockjaws and 2 Calling Wings. I don't know. Maybe we do 2 Modoks on the last turn to double discard our Apocalypse again. We just have a lot of possibilities with Sinister London in this matchup. And so our Apocalypse is already massive. He's already starting off very, very massive. With the Zabu, I'm starting to think maybe taking out the Leech was not a great call. Because now I'm afraid of maybe a double Spider-Man lockdown here. Maybe even a triple Spider-Man lockdown. But we are afraid of it, because they could do a Spider-Man and then next turn Absorbing Man in Sinister London, and we're just locked out of that location. but they're running Mr. Negative, so I'm thinking it is ooh, the Wong is scary, because now it could be a Silver Surfer deck, and they could just get an insanely big trigger on that card in Sinister London. Just very, very scary. But we do have the double Modok here. So our Apocalypse is also going to get very, very large. If we can somehow avoid capping out the Sinister London lane, then on the last turn, we will be able to do a double Chavez into the double Apocalypse discard. The only thing that could have made this a little bit better is if we had the double Morbius on the board as well, because he would have been an absolute unit. Oh, so the Mystique is going to trigger here. It's going to push over into Strange Academy. Hopefully it pushes over to the left and not to the right. If it pushes to the right for them, this is game over. So all they have to have, like a Wolfsbane is going to trigger 2, 4, 6 times, right? I mean, at this point, we are going to let it play out. We're going to let them have their moment in the sun. Like, this is beautiful. The way that this stacked, I'll donate 2 cubes to you, JLH. We're going to go ahead and play the double Chavez discard. Honestly, we're hoping that they don't have a good on reveal. We're hoping that they missed that play line. But if they have anything even halfway decent, an Iron Heart, a Silver Surfer, anything halfway decent, they just blow us away in Sinister London. So the Iron Man to the left, interesting. The Wolfsbane is going to be the largest Wolfsbane I have ever seen. Because not only is it going to trigger in Sinister London, it will also jump over into whatever lane it goes into and trigger there as well, which it triggers in the middle location. There's no way that we win the middle location. Whoa, did they just... Did they just choke? All right, next up we have Sergeant Johnson, and the first location is Monster Island. We have Swarm in our starting hand, we have our Modok, our Hela, we now have our Dracula as well. So if we can get maybe something that potentially discards our Modok, then resummoning him at the end of the game could give some really crazy value, especially if it looks like we're going the standard Apocalypse play line, and then all of a sudden we surprise them with the resummon with Modok. That could be pretty big. So Dracula gets hit with Iceman, which is awful. That brings him up to 5, making our playline very, very clunky. We do draw into Lockjaw, so that is a good rotational tool. We can play him out onto the board early and then utilize him later in the game. So I'm thinking maybe next turn we do Blade. Maybe next turn we do a Blade, or if we end up... Oh no, you are evil, Sergeant Johnson. That could have destroyed our puppy. You are a cold-hearted creature. So we could go... We can go with Blade here. That actually allows us to rotate the Blade a turn early. So I think we go with Blade here. Depending on what it discards, we might pump the brakes a little bit and make sure that we get the Hela resummon at the end of the game. So if it discards Modok, we can just resummon that at the end of the game. We could do Dracula on 5 and then just get some insane value that way. But I think that is what we're going to push for. So they rotate... I still can't believe they tried to murder our puppy. They snap here. I'm not sure. I took a little bit long on this turn, so maybe that's what they're snapping for. The Cosmo is kind of mean. That is the second mean thing that you've done, Sergeant. I'm starting to think that you don't like us. So it's not going to be great, but we're going to be able to do Modok. I assume that they're running a Silver Surfer deck. We're going to be able to play Modok. Probably into Hellfire Club. I assume that this is going to be the location that they drop a Brood eventually. So maybe a Sarah here on this turn, and then a Brood here on the final turn, along with like Silver Surfer and something else. So we're going to play Modok into Hellfire Club. That will give us 1 free rotation with Swarm. We can play 1 Swarm and our Apocalypse on the last turn naturally. Now we're not going to get the additional value from the Dracula, from being able to play Chavez and get the Dracula discard, but we will get a decent rotation here. So otherwise, a unwinnable... Wow, so they played Brood this turn. I had the read close, but it wasn't quite there. And so we are going to rotate our Swarm. If we flip into Morbius, that's okay. We've discarded a decent number of cards thanks to our Modok. But I do think we push in the middle location, we push in the left location. Our ideal flip is Morbius. Calling Wing would be the second, and then Blade would be the lowest of low rolls. But we still have a chance. They only have the one card in Monster Island that gets buffed up with Silver Surfer. So we have a decent shot here. They've already wasted their Juggernaut. We get the retreat. They don't even let us play it out, but the Modok absolutely came in critical there. That would not have been possible because we had our one discard that was lined up. We had that blocked. So that created just so much flexibility for us on that last turn. Beautiful value. Let's go ahead and take the 2 cubes. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Shy, and we have our Hela and our Apocalypse in our starting hand again. That should not happen as often as it has. So this is the 5th game in a row that we're showcasing. The others it was a 5-game win streak, and we have won each one that we've matched up against. And we've had Hela and Apocalypse in close to our starting hand in almost every single one. We're going to play Morbius into Monster Island. I don't want anything to get shifted over with the Strange Academy. And so we're going to use this last location. As long as it's not a bad location, we're going to use the last location for our lockjaw rotations. And so we do have our Swarm. If we can discard that one, great. The last location being Titan allows us to do our Hela a little bit easier. They use Wave here, so they could potentially be going with the Galactus. If they are, we're gonna discard our entire hand here. We're gonna flip that back into our deck. We're gonna have the chance to top deck it back again to do the same exact thing on turn 5, potentially, which would be the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, as long as they're not going Galactus. Galactus is very scary. The Magneto is mean. That is so mean. But it's okay. We don't get to rotate our Modok, which would have been great. It would have been beautiful. But that's okay. We get the value out of him, the insane value. He does discard our Hela, but he also helps jumpstart our Morbius. Our Apocalypse gets jumpstarted as well. And we can just do some pretty big things. We're going to go ahead and do our Swarm rotation into the Lady Sif discard. If we pull into Calling Wing, that could potentially give us another Swarm discard, or it would give us another Swarm discard. Dracula would be all right, but it also doubles up on that big power push into mid. So we would end up playing our Apocalypse outright. Chavez gives us the flexibility to do kind of a surprising play on the last turn, depending on what we draw into. Calling Wing, so we do get some more Swarms, but outside of that, I don't know. We get a huge Apocalypse. We have these Swarms coming back down. We have the really big Morbius in the middle, which is massive. So they cap out the far right lane with the Doombot that they pushed over into Strange Academy. So all we have to do is push more than 3 power here. We're currently winning in the Monster Island, so even though we can't discard anything additional, I think we might be able to squeeze this one out. We're going to play the Apocalypse to the left. We're going to push our Swarms over to the right. That would give us the lead there. Even if they had an Odin that only pushes 5 more power here, we win the left, we win the middle, and they do end up retreating. We will take that. That is the perfect 5-0, and this is the second run at it. The first time I recorded the entire video, and I had my mic muted. So we are going to go ahead and end the video there. Not a huge high roll, but so far incredibly consistent. I think this actually bumps up the discard archetype a little bit more than I thought it would. I am having an absolute blast. I'm going to continue to grind this. We will be testing out the Hela Modok discard and the Hela Ramp Modok discard, and then we'll be keeping an eye on for anything else spicy that might be worth trying. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.